Yeah, so revolutionary greetings, comrades, and welcome once again to all the comrades that are present here, both sisters and brothers with us, from either the south of Africa, the center of Africa, the west or the east of Africa, outside Africa in the diaspora, whether in Europe or in the Caribbean. Feel most welcome, comrades, to this space today. And today we are intending to look at the Pan-African infrastructure, but our key focus is the energy sector. Because the one thing in this generation and in this century we have is that the energy sector, the energy is very important for our industries to run, for us to have the computers and the meeting you're having today. And this is becoming a challenge in terms of the African. The second thing is that we have infrastructure in line of energy, but are they Pan-African enough? Or are they in the scope of covering beyond a country? And who owns such projects? And whether the energy system is sufficient enough in the continent of Africa to sustain Africa. Because one thing we must be sure that if you want to develop Africa, we'll not develop Africa if we don't have sufficient energy to run our industries, to run our vehicles, to run our whatever we want to do. So in this presentation, I'll start first of all by introducing the first part of my presentation to look at Kwame Nkrumah's vision. Most of the time we do reference from consciousness level to Kwame Nkrumah's vision, but the purpose of this Saturday is to tie our conversation towards the unification of Africa into a one continental government or a state. So I want to do the two parts of I've said of that presentation. And the first part is starting with what is Nkrumah's vision, what did Nkrumah do about energy? So the key headline of my topic as is written here is Kwame Nkrumah's energy vision, powering Ghana and African future. And we are trying to look at the ambitious project that Kwame Nkrumah put in place for the foundations of energy sector in the Africa. So Kwame Nkrumah actually, when he became the president of Ghana, one thing he did that he believed firmly that energy and self-sufficiency was the cornerstone of economic independence and the national development that could break us away from colonial reliance. So his ambitious projects were aimed to fundamentally transform Ghana from agriculture-based to more of an industrial powerhouse in the continent. And some of the things Kwame Nkrumah did included the Volta River project. And in 1961, the construction was started and was completed around 1965, which resulted to Lake Volta, which was to be actually one of the world's largest man-made lakes by surface area. There was a Kosovo Dam hydroelectric plant, which initially actually generated 912 megawatts, was also critical towards powering the Ghana industry. And it actually led to even electrification of the nation. So Nkrumah envisioned the dam as the very heart of integrated industrial complex designed to support a network of factories, steel, textile, and sugar production. He actually aimed also to provide surplus energy to the neighboring countries, just to support this. And this was a clear testament that Nkrumah believed much on the sector or the infrastructures of energy and its role in the continent. Now, starting from that nuclear project that also Nkrumah came up with, because actually in 1961, Nkrumah launched the first nuclear energy. And that was to diversify the national power source and beyond electricity. I don't know if you still have the nuclear plant in the continent today. There is also what Nkrumah established as Ghana Atomic Energy Commission, which was aiming at application of nuclear science in clean energy. There's one called the Kwabenya Project that was also aimed introducing cutting-edge nuclear science. And I know we have members from Ghana with us here who might be able to share practical of these stories of what was done in terms of this sector. So all this could show that Nkrumah was forward thinking in regards on how the continent of the country could have an energy that could enable it to move forward. So Nkrumah advocated for nuclear plants, even at a continental scope in the AU meeting. In fact, he was very influential in AU emphasizing on the independence or energy independence as a fundamental key to Africa's complete liberation and sustainable development. The River Water Project faced, of course, during its time as the challenges. It faced a lot of significant international funding hurdles. And also there was political opposition. But Nkrumah managed to find a way to move forward with this. The promising nuclear program at Kwabenya also was stalled after Nkrumah overthrow. There is also other long-term projects that actually failed later, but some were revived, and some other later did. So if you look at this, is that there have been initiatives actually to continue what Nkrumah did. I'm told there's a project called Pwalungu, hydroelectric power project or station. The nuclear plant was also tried to get a revival in 2000. The Akasombo also continued to be some of the vital projects. But this is from Nkrumah's vision of energy reliance. And that shows us that Nkrumah understood the importance of the continent investing on the energy sector, and probably why that could play a big role to the continent today. So my next part of this will actually be looking at the statistic of the energy infrastructure. But before I do that, I'll probably just request, if with permission of members present, if some members from Ghana who know the history of Ghana and the project Nkrumah put in terms of energy, can feel free to come in and probably just share with us what you think in that line, what Nkrumah himself did in terms of energy before we have the general conversation about the energy sector or infrastructure in the continent. Any member who is willing to share more of that is most welcome before we go to the next phase.
Okay, should I?
Yeah, Brother The King, you can go ahead, and any member want to comment on especially Ghana and Nkrumah project in terms of energy, just raise your hand so that I can call on you before we move to the other open conversation. Brother The King?
Come in.
Yeah, but
energy project was one of what broke the camel's back for Nkrumah to be taken out of the system. Especially Akosombo Dam. The Akosombo Dam, he actually built it as a temporary one to our rising need for the energy during that time. So his intention was to build the nuclear energy, which was going to serve as a larger energy for the whole of West Africa, as he actually continued to work on the continent, a plan for the continent. So this energy done, the Kakosombo was done to supply energy to Tema. As at that time, Tema harbor was being built, or the Tema, the industrial areas in Tema were being built. Valco, which they were dealing in metals, they were, and we also had different energy industrial projects that were needed high form of energy. You see, so with this, he really tapped into a lot. The Bui Dam was also built later by Achampom, and also the one you did mention, the Kwalugu project was also built by him. Aside that, there are other small ones that was also built by him to supply energy to the country. As we speak currently, the nuclear energy that was started as at that time was taken away in 2010 or something to America. One of the countries came to take it. So we do not have that nuclear energy, that nuclear plants that was being built here in Ghana anymore. However, we still have the schools, the universities around that is still teaching that about energy. So basically, that is the little I know about what he did.
Okay, thank you, Brother The King. Brother Usu?
In fact, what I was gonna say is what he has mentioned. I think the water had three phases. I mean, Akosombo, Pong, and then the one he mentioned, Bui, also. Yeah, and I know that I was very young that time, and what I got interested was when I think during the high school time when we were told about all this atomic energy at Kwabenya and the rest. It was something exciting that such a country could be engaging in that. But I mean, with the corruption and the other successive governments, some were interested to continue, especially those that were pro Nkrumah, apart from a champion rolling time. But whatever happened up to now, I think even though Ghana has a stable energy, but I feel that if we can have atomic energy and use it for other purposes, it will be more stable than the current situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Amma, do you have anything to share in regards to this, Sister Amma?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody who have anything to add in regards to Nkrumah and the energy thing? If not, I'll go to the next part of this, when I'll be focusing on the general energy issue.
Brother Pigeon.
Yes, Brother Satish. Brother Window.
Greetings to everybody. Tell me, did I hear you, Guruma, thinking about nuclear power for
Yes,
Ghana
he
and
did that.
Africa?
He did that.
Yeah. So only Pan-Africanists will think about nuclear power. So meaning since Guruma's departure to afterlife, there hasn't been any Pan-African president in power. I rest there. Just so we know. Vision 2065 is not 2063, is not for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Window. Now, I have a very short overview now on the continental scope in terms of the power energy. And the key question is, does Africa have enough energy to power its development? And the clear answer is no. Because even electricity alone for domestic usage is an issue. There's a blackout we still face as a people of continent. Some of us cannot even participate in such meetings because of blackout. So,
and Brother Bigin, sorry to say this. The xenophobic state of South Africa is one that has got the shortest supply of electricity. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll look at that next Saturday further. Let's explain to us why the supply is short and the rest of that. But thank you. So the current supply falls short of demand in the continent. We have over 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa lacking reliable electricity access. And maybe just to take a bit engagement on this, members might be able to tell us in 1 or 2 minutes, how is the electricity situation in your country? Just in 1 or 2 minutes. Not outside the continent, but probably in the continent. And if you're outside the continent, if you have true experience, can you just share the experience? How does it look like? It will be more engaging, and I'll maybe go around and ask around. From maybe, let's start with probably Sister Ida. Sister Ida?
Hello, yeah.
Oh, yeah, on the times you have been probably in the other side of the continent here, and when you have been out of the continent where you are, in terms of electricity supply, did you realize there's any change or there's any shortage? whether you had some blackouts or you come across some many communities that are not connected to electricity in any of the parts. What can you say about that?
Well, all I can say is that yes, there are times on and off where we have blackouts, but any of the others in Ghana will know. And also, it depends on what, like, if elections. I'm not sure if it really depends on if elections, but there can be times where usually they leave it on. They take it off, but not long enough that things in the fridge will start going bad. So if you have it off for 8 hours, maybe up to 12 hours, but I don't think we have it off for days and days. Anybody from Ghana can tell me. It also depends what area in Ghana you're in, because for a long, long time, the area which was below Akosombo Dam never even had electricity, even though they were so close to Akosombo Dam, because I remember reading about that and thinking, how can that be? But I think now, on the whole, most places have got electricity. But it depends. Water, I think, is often more of a problem for people, because especially some of the new places for a long time didn't have water and could do almost, they'd have water tanks and stuff, but they didn't have water. So though we had new towns, when I say new towns, I'm not talking about the old new towns, but the estates that were built further out from Accra. A lot of them suffered from having to go maybe to their friends or family to get water or pay for it. So I think water, in a way, is more of a problem half the time. But yes, electricity cuts are there. They're definitely there, on and off.
And how is the comparison with where you are currently? Is it the same thing that's going on where you are now?
Well, I think it depends which side of London you live on, because I was really surprised. This was years ago, going to the other side of London to find that they had power cuts. But our side, northwest, I think you can almost count on your fingers how many times we've had a power cut in maybe 20, 30 years. Yeah. So I think it depends where you live sometimes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brother also, would you like to share that something in 2 minutes in regards to this?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, Ghana electricity, in terms of the distribution, I would like to give it perfect, because the credit goes to late Jerry Rawlings. In fact, his highest achievement is how they took electricity to almost every region. That time we had 9 regions. And I worked for almost like 10 years in one of the remote and the poorest area in Ghana, which was Upper West region that time. And every village that I would go that time at least had electricity. So from statistics that I have now, Ghana is almost 85% covered. You see, and it's among the top 7 countries in Africa. That is between 85 and then 99%. The 99% are in the North Africa region. And then I think how many? I think 3: Kenya, your place, Ghana, and I think somewhere around Congo, one of the Congos also have somewhere 80-something%. So when it comes to electricity, there may be just few places that are not yet covered, but even they should have been covered by now. The problem was the past years when there were this cut-off and instability, but I think the government has worked hard to ensure, stable power supply to many places now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sister Chisomo, what was the experience in both sides where you have been in terms of power or energy? And when you're talking of energy, it's beyond just even electricity, the water. We're talking of even the solar, all elements of energy. How is it, Sister Tapo or Sister Chisomo, from your side?
In Scotland, they was advanced, and then we have we alternate between gas, electricity. So usually you have both in the house, one for heating and one for cooking, and you can choose to cook with gas as well. But then you'll have electricity for lighting. They do solar schemes, but it's not clear how these schemes work. They will advertise, and then when you inquire, it seems complex. But new developer, people who are building new houses, they're coming with solar. They're coming with solar system. So the idea is you have solar, and then some have it, they sell it to the grid. So you sell it to the grid. How they that's how they together their energy to then resell to other people. And then in the shops you get a lot of solar lights anyway. You get solar lights for the house, for outside. You get floodlights that are solar. And then in Malawi, electricity is a problem. Even to get installed is such a huge problem. And once your electricity, there's something wrong, it's always, oh, the transmitter or the pole, something has happened on the pole. So they have this system where you prepay on a little, you have in your house prepay. Like here we have they call smart meters. So you top up each time it's running down, top up. Each time it runs up, you top up. So you have option for a smart meter or paying monthly. So now they have, I think the whole system is the smart meter one that top up when it's running down, and you top up when it's running down. So you can use those little phones to buy the electricity. But it's a few hours per day, I think. It's a few days without, maybe. But like I said, once yours was like mine went and stopped because they said it was not integrated in. That's what we found out later, that it was. They said it was not integrated into the system, but they had been coming to the house so many times, almost here, and then there was, oh, they're busy. And another one will come, oh, it's the meter, oh, it's the this, the that, it's the this. I suppose because I'm not at the house and nobody's paying them, so they were not gonna sort it out until I spoke to someone I know who works for ESCOM, and now the electricity is back on. That's when they said, oh, it was not integrated. And I'm thinking, all those visits, you could tell the system was not integrated into the new system. But anyway, that's that. But apart from that, then I noticed that when I was there last year, end of last year, that all these houses had little lights. All these houses in the village, everywhere, even in town, there are these little lights. And they say they buy them as a pack, and a little solar panel. So you put it on top of the roof, and then you put the bulbs. It comes with about 4 or 5 bulbs, and you can add the bulbs, and then you light the whole house using that. So I'm thinking, why are even people bothering with ESCOM when they can just put a one-off payment on this package and then just light up your house? Like, maybe because you can't charge your phone and you can't cook with it, but now you've got gas that you can buy, and you can buy a little hob or whatever, or a gas cooker, and use gas cooker. So in that way, if you have gas cooker and you have the solar energy stuff, then it means you live off grid. And I remember one of my workers, I saw him putting something. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm charging my phone." And he had a solar kind of tablet that he uses to charge his phone. So with all that together, I'm not sure why we're even bothering with fighting these people and living in houses that have no electricity when you can actually live off grid and have no bills.
Okay.
That's me.
Thank you for that experience as well. Comrade Ngwaba? Ngwaba? Ferozi, please go ahead.
No, thanks so much, comrades and Africans. I'm so glad to be in this meeting. It's my first time, and it's a coincidence because as I'm talking to you, I'm using my cell phone to participate in the meeting because there is no electricity. So indeed, I agree with everyone in the House regarding the contribution that has been made. Talking about electricity in the continent, for me, I am convinced that there is no political will to deal with the electricity issues in the continent. My position is justified by first, the politics of electricity suppliers, two, the privatization of electricity supplier entities that were government entities, but during the structural adjustment programs, some of these entities were privatized. Without going much more, I think the continent can sustain itself in terms of electricity if politicians invest in electricity production. I am based in South Africa, but originally I'm from the DRC, the Congo. And if you look at the Congo, in terms of availability of rivers and dams, or perhaps I would even say the climate conditions are suitable for the DRC to be able to supply electricity to everyone without a blackout. But the question, which has an answer, above 60 years of independence, has the DRC took the energy supplier sector to replace or perhaps to give it an importance outside of mining. Because of the availability of all of these resources, we can mute a little bit issues of conflict, and we have a correct leadership that can say most of the conflict, starting from the death of Patrice Lumumba, all the conflict have been around mineral resources. Why can't we as the Congolese and begin to say, can we be the supplier perhaps, the sellers of energy, electricity, because the gift that we got from our ancestors and our god and goddesses can allow that to happen. So, chair of the session, to conclude, I would also give another example of South Africa where I am. the umbilical cord of the South African economy is linked to the mining sector. How can we have an economy that is linked, that its umbilical cord stand on the mining sector, but it still has problems around electricity supply? What would perhaps suggest where I am is to say, it is not going to be an easy task for us to think about nuclear when we have been unable to provide electricity to someone within the suburb of Kampala in Uganda, someone within the suburb of Accra in Ghana, outside of the areas where rich people live. So until we are able to resolve and respond to the electricity need of everyone, that is where we can begin to talk about nuclear. Thanks, Chair. That's my submission. And please accept my apology because I've joined a little bit late. I may perhaps repeat what has been said, but as I'm talking to you, I'm standing outside because there is no electricity in the house and I'm using the cell phone. That is the continent we are living, that Nkrumah, Lumumba, Nyerere left us. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Of course, Nkrumah left something beyond just electricity. He had even envisioned nuclear. And not only envisioned, tried even to work on it. And if you could think of it in that time and move beyond ensuring that the Akasobo was there and nuclear is running that time, then it means, as you've said, there's an element of political goodwill. I've just been running you through just briefly on the global scale of electricity access. Of course, the main center of energy today across the conversation about electricity. And the realist country like Burundi only have 11% access of electricity by 2023. 11% in Burundi, for example. And that tells you how far are we away from industrialization. Because if you have to industrialize Africa and develop Africa in the scope of mega industries, mega companies, mega production, electricity or energy will play a very critical role. We are looking at this topic beyond the basics of just connecting electricity to the house, but to power industry, to power development, to power production. But we realize that if the basic in the household is what you and you are fighting to meet, how far are we from meeting what is necessary? So I think that's a very important conversation. I'll allow an experience from South Africa. I think that Elder Sam is here. Elder Sam, please share with us maybe in 2 minutes also the experience in South Africa in regards to this. As we go on with this conversation, I'll be finishing my presentation once I get the cross-examination of what's going on in different parts of the country. Elder Sam?
Comrade Chair, just one submission, Chair. Please,
Okay,
through
go
you.
ahead.
Thanks, Chair.
Comrade Ngwaba, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair. Chair, I was saying industrialization before living in good conditions are two issues that we need to look at. For example, South Africa is one of the most industrialized countries in the continent. But how do the majority of the people live? Do they benefit from the industrialization? Do they live in life that can be described as a better life? Because we can really talk, Comrade Chair, and I agree with you about industrialization, and you made the point by saying that what I was talking is basic. Yes, indeed. We have millions of basic things that we have not been able to sort out, despite us thinking about industrialization. If we can't be able to provide even primary school education to the majority of our children, what is going to be industrialization if primary education is the foundation of education? And I'm sorry, Comrade Chair, to touch outside of the presentation. But for me, I think having access to electricity to our people should be the first step that is not basic. And then industrialization can come in. Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, comrade, for pointing to us what is actually I was trying to run to, is that if we are in the process in terms of energy supply, not able to provide the basic for survival, then how far are we from even thinking of industrializing and developing Africa? It means we are far away from manufacturing of vehicles, manufacturing of machines, of whatever we need in the continent, because we don't have sustainable power, even just to feed our domestic use. And that is the worst part of it. When you look at the statistics, many countries are 100% supply in terms of just connection to the citizens. They have 100% of electricity. So it means they can now start thinking of supplies to move it to the industries. When in countries like, for example, look at South Sudan, 5.4% electricity. So tell me, how far they are away even to meet 100% of supply to the citizens before even they think of now investing for industries, development, and the rest? And this statistic is worrying, 20%, 15%. That's a clear show that we are very far away. Look at most of the country I'm sharing here, and I've shared this link to our chat based on the request of members. Some countries here are 100%. But majority of us are struggling to meet even that supply of citizens connection to 100% before even look of the industries access to run. Because you only sometimes might concentrate much of surplus for industries. But in other countries, they have now concentrated the little they have for industries, and I don't care about whether people live in darkness or whatever, as long as the power they have is for the industry. And in countries like Kenya, even where we pay power, the tax on power is double the price. So when I'm paying my electricity bill, I get the breakdown of my payment. And when you do the breakdown, if I pay 200 Kenya shillings for electricity, I'll get electricity worth only 100 or 110 Kenya shillings. 80% is tax that I pay for that electricity. And still, it's not sufficient enough. So let me get the experience a bit from the Southern Africa by Elder Sam. Elder Sam? If Elder Sam is not in the room, probably Sir Windhoek. Sir Windhoek, an experience from your side in terms of the power in that side. And also we have Brother Ifo, Sister Nancy, or Sister Shaza. You can share with us what is the state of electricity or energy access in your part of the continent or also the continent you are. We just want to get that experience from members. Yes, Sir Windhoek?
Namibia has got a big brother in the name of South Africa. Our cousin Eskom is providing Namibia with electricity, very steady and constant supply, because we also pay them handsomely, unlike much of the electricity that is being stolen from the grid in South Africa. So Namibia is a very good payer. They cannot disappoint us. So we have relaxed. We do produce a bit at Ruacana, hydroelectricity, but that's very minimal. We have got the Kaluek Dam, but there's now complications. That time, South Africa had monopoly over southern Angola. and Namibia has built a hydropower there, but now it's Angola's property and this and that. We had negotiations with the DRC during the tenure of Sam Nujoma. I don't know where they have ended. As far as wind electricity is concerned, maybe 1% or 2%. Solar energy, we have got farms here and there. I don't have statistics, but very minimal supply. To the contrary, Namibia has got maybe 4 towns and regions in the top 5 African cities, sunniest cities. Like our city, Mariendal and Keetmanshoop are in the top 10 sunniest, but we still don't harvest enough solar energy. So all in all are attributable to a lack of vision by our leaders. We have got a sea from the southernmost point of Namibia to the northernmost point of Namibia. We don't even have a single desalination plant to supply water inland. And Namibia has got a shortage of water. It's not water self-sufficient. We don't harvest the rainwater. Just dams here and there, but no single Namibia during the rainy season even think about harvesting water, rainwater for household use. And water in Windhoek, the capital, from August is being rationed. We don't have enough water yet. We don't make the necessary plans, contingency plans to make ourselves water self-sufficient. So again, a lack of vision, a lack of willpower from the politicians. Yeah, and I understand South Africa at independence had a nuclear plant, plant station, nuclear production station. But one of the conditions for them to gain independence was for that nuclear plant to be destroyed, because whites in the West did not trust the nuclear production plant in the hands of blacks. I don't know how true that is, but that is just something in passing. So all in all, Namibia maybe can produce for itself only 20%, and the rest is like being imported. So one day, if South Africa decides to close that tap, Namibia is going to suffer. And just imagine, for 35 years, we haven't made a plan should South Africa close their taps. So we believe in God, everything we pray, and we pray that South Africa will not be naughty one day. And that's the situation in Namibia. So Vision 2063, I don't know this discussion that we have. How will it speed up the unification and development of Africa? I really can't place. I can't get an answer to that. For us to get things moving, things haven't been moving from 1963 until now, and things are still not moving. We have to come up with a radical program. We have to come up with a project that we will call Radical Pan-Africanist Project to get things moving. Things are stuck in the sand of a desert. And we are happy with that. We are singing 2063, and I don't think we have the agency to undercut that long stretch of 2063. I might be wrong, but I submit there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sister Shaza or Nancy or Brother Ifo, any of you want to share with us, and then I can conclude the presentation ahead on this issue of energy, electricity, or such in where you are. Anybody is willing to share?
I'll share. I unfortunately cannot contribute to the conversation of how this impacts Africa, because I'm not in Africa. I happen to be in the US, which is the beneficiary of the exploitation of Africa. And it pains me to say that. But I do agree with most of what's been said. I think that the importance of looking at solutions, sustainable solutions, safe solutions, and solutions that will allow our people to be energy independent, and also renewable sources of energy, such as solar, which was discussed in detail. I think also wind energy in places where that is, most beneficial. I think coastal areas where there are strong winds. A combination of a lot of solutions. So I think hydropower we have to be cautious about because we I think recognize now that potential dangers of large dams in terms of ecosystems and the potential of flooding, and also keeping water from other parts from other people who need it. But there's also things like geothermal sources. I mean, there's so many potential sources of energy besides, just fossil fuels. And I think these are things that we, as a continent, we need to look at. I think the other thing that's fairly important is the recognition that neocolonialism is what is causing the problems that we're experiencing right now. And there are a lot of, obviously, contracts and deals that exploit our people and don't give us the opportunity to benefit, from our own energy. So, to the extent that we can address that. And also share technologies. Not only share energy, but share the technologies, what works, to be able to try to replicate it in other parts of Africa, and also recognize that different parts of Africa will have different solutions. So I'm going to stop there in the interest of time, but I think this is a really important topic. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much, Sister Nancy, and thank you also for your contribution as well. Sister Shada? Would you like to say something? Or Brother Ifo?
Hello. Yeah, I have a few things to share. One is, I think that the decision to not have reliable power is actually a political decision. In the context of Nigeria, there are people who have a vested interest in making sure that the power grid doesn't work because they sell generators and they also import the machines, the gas, the kerosene. There's a conflict of interest in there. Now, the interesting thing is Nigeria also provides power to Niger on the condition that power needs to work all the time. So miraculously, the Nigerian Power Authority, that doesn't know how to provide power in Nigeria reliably, manages to provide power to the Nigerian Republic reliably. So this is a decision that has been made for some people's profit. The other point I wanted to make was, I think at Nkrumah's time, there was still a lot of propaganda about the nuclear power being a clean technology. It is not. The indigenous peoples whose land is the nuclear stuff is mining are usually the ones who pay the brunt. They end up with all kinds of diseases and cancers as a result of the nuclear fallout. Nuclear is not clean technology. That's one. And then my last point is about decentralization. Some of the projects that I'm working on back home is to create community-owned infrastructure, power, telecom, because there are ways now in which communities can own their infrastructure. And so instead of having a power bill from every month or every quarter or whatever, however else you get billed, you can have communities in a situation where they actually get a power rebate. Because if you have industry that needs power in your community, the community can own the infrastructure and then be able to provide the excess power to the commercial interests that need it and be able to get something back, or at least in the initial stage of the investment, be able to get discounts. There are programs from different governments. I know the Nigerian government has programs to allow communities to do these sort of things. And I think we maybe should be looking towards community-owned infrastructure supported by the state if the state is friendly, because that puts the power back literally in the hands of the community. And it also allows people to, instead of having a power bill, you can have a power credit, which you can use to buy things in the community or send your kids to school or whatever. And the last thing is I agree with the sister who talked about education. When I was growing up, education was free. Now people have to pay. When I was growing up, water was also free. You have water fountains all the way. Now people have got into the business of selling water. And so now the government has stopped providing or repairing the water fountains, which were available in the communities for free. So there's multiple levels to this capitalist thing that we need to really, really, really investigate as we move forward to create better society. I also live in Canada right now, and the only time power goes out is when there's a hurricane or some other natural disaster, or maybe somebody hits a pole, there's a major accident. It's not something that happens. When I was back home, we could count on our hands the number of times the power was actually working. The only thing they seem to be able to do reliably is to bill us. They had no problem collecting our money for power. They just didn't want to provide the power. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, comrade. I think we have been able to have a cross experience of various countries that are represented with us here. And there's a clear indication that a lot needs to be done. Just to continue and towards ending my presentation is that.
Can I just come in, please?
Oh,
Briefly?
Sitama, yeah, please come in, Sitama.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the link to the data. I think if everybody, I'm not saying to do it now, but if you actually scroll down to the end of that data set, it's got electricity averages or whatever for different regions in the world. And I mean, that's part of the reason why I asked for it, because I was just trying to work out Europe and North America, 100%. Africa, 53%, or sub-Saharan Africa, as they describe it. And I think for us, electricity or power, and thanks to the person who spoke last, is consideration in different blocks. One, infrastructure. If we do not have robust power infrastructure, then so many other things cannot function. Transportation, industries, etc., etc. And what you see, I live in London, the UK or Britain, and it's extremely rare, wherever you live in Britain, for there to be no electricity or no power, because we have electricity and gas. On the occasions when it happens, you see how it hits the news and the headlines. Extremely rare. And it's important for the infrastructure, not just in terms of your individual personal living, but walking in the street with light, getting on train, bus, shops, whatever. So there's infrastructure. Then there's what we need individually as people. Having every time, and without a doubt, every single time I have been to Ghana, which is where my family is from, we've had both power cuts and Dumso, power cuts and water, at some point. So I've never experienced constant electricity in Ghana, or water for that matter, to the extent that I trained myself to wake up when you could hear the water coming from the pipes, and quite often they'd do it in the middle of the night. And I trained myself to be able to hear that, to wake up, to then go out and fill up buckets and this and that. And then the other aspect of power and source and access to power is the ability of people to pay. So, and being able to pay or purchase power is on a number of levels. One, I'll guarantee you that everybody of a certain, let's say, income class level in the different parts of Africa where we don't have 100% of power, which is most parts, will have their backup power supply, which is a generator, as somebody just mentioned, generator. For poor people, it's kerosene, as we used to call it, or less. So there's a whole issue about people and individuals and families and communities being able to, if there is proper infrastructure, and actually that happens here in the UK, because if you don't pay, they will literally cut off your supply. So people who come from poorer working backgrounds, who can't afford to pay, having their supplies cut off. But the table is actually very, very useful. So thanks for sharing that. And I think what somebody else mentioned is about when we're talking about power, we need to look at the different ways in which power can be produced. And we're moving away from fossil fuel power, nuclear power, maybe not, as somebody said. But what we have in abundance in Africa is the sun. I'll finish there.
No, thank you. Thank you, Sister Amaswed, for coming in and sharing this. I think it's very important on this conversation as well. Just to echo what all of us have said, and as I'm trying to move up to finish my presentation, is that one is that, let me just finish this by saying that the Africa access rate of power is around 50%. Of course, the statistics says 53%. Brother King, I'll allow you to come after I'll finish this. I'll finish maybe in the next 10 minutes maximum. Then you come in as we come to the end. So the access of electricity or access to power in Africa is around 50%, averaging 53%, while other continents go to almost 100%, or up to 99%. Now we have the number of people, 600 million in sub-Saharan Africa. The average consumption of power in the continent, the consumption, which of course what Sister Amma was saying, the demand for it. The consumption is only 180 kilowatts, while the global consumption is 3,000. So we are short with so many, 2,000 and something. The total capacity of installed power is around 250 to 300 gigawatts, continentally wide or continent wide. And these have also contributed to energy poverty cost in the continent, which is around 2 to 4%. So you see, to industrialize and achieve universal access in Africa, Africa needs a massive energy expansion. The energy demand could be doubled either by 2050 or more than that. And if we target by 2050, probably the primary energy demand may reach almost 1,500, which is currently 180. The installed capacity might also rise if you look at 2050. So per capita consumption need to reach 1,000 to 2,000 kilowatts. Currently it's 180 across the continent, or the global demand is 3,000. So we need that consumption need per capita to move to almost 2,000 kilowatts per year. This is to enable us to power manufacturing, mining, digital economy. Without this, even the inter-Africa trade will remain below 20%. The investment requirement is around $25 billion annually, by up to 2030, for us to have renewable upgrades and access. The total for zero carbon electrification by 2050 has failed. So we need around almost $130 billion continental-wide. But we have an untapped energy potential in the continent. For example, we've been talking about the solar. 60% of the global solar resource with 118 countries to install. If we look at that, we can attain it. The hydro It's 20% of potential which is untapped. And for example, the Congo River, which one of our brothers from Congo said this, and even Kuma mentioned the project that was the Hinga Dam project. That Congo River alone can generate a lot. We have access to wind. Look at the coastal line. All that has wind. And the continent, even if you were to have the wind powers across the continental coastal lines alone, is enough to power us. The geothermal, of course, of the water reliability. So many countries in Africa still get water. So we have a lot. Africa can self-rely or can self-power its investment scales up. Of course, we have a funding gap, but we can do that if we meet those demands. So if you look at the transformative projects we've been having of, in example, the Grand Inga Dam, which is now, of course, generating the other potential of 40 to 70 gigawatts, is capable of powering a half of the continent. One country alone, Congo, can power a half of the continent. So look at who is funding it now. The World Bank is not coming in. The GAD, which was just an Ethiopian project, is even now exporting, with 5 gigawatts alone, it's exporting power to Kenya. Kenya has also been buying power from Uganda. The solar farm, for example, the one in South Africa, the wind in Kenya and Morocco, the geothermal in East Africa, has a lot of potential for Africa. We have regional grids, the SAP interconnectation, the floating solar on Kariba, also in Mozambique and in Nigeria. But what is the cost? If 55 Africa continental African countries could unite through either AU mechanism or anything else, to cost for transformative projects could be very easy. If all 50, so-called 55 countries or 54 of them could be donating money to contribute in a specific project of energy, for example, in the Grand Inga, then it means that each country could actually, estimately for them to support the Grand Inga project, could release between $80 billion, which a unified contribution model, if it is together with the AU, just 20% of member states could even actually have 80% investment on that, without now going for what's called World Bank to help us to do the funding. We can also have the Pan-African grid, and each country can only donate $1 billion, and this is enough for us to invest on this. So we need such projects of the continent starting to think in a unified way, rather than saying it's only for the responsibility of Congo to go look for investment. No. If there's a project of potential to support the continent, the all AU should sit down, or all those 55, whatever countries, sit down and say, we are going to put money here to power our continent. But they're still thinking in the line of the country. So if you put it there, they are going to benefit the people of Congo alone. So these are the statistics that we have. If you look at the Pan-African power grid, which is actually the vision to unify the Africa, is a continent-wide interconnected grid centered on Grand Inga, integrating regional pools, for example, the West Africa, the South Africa, and East Africa, to distribute clean energy from hydro solar hubs. The component is to expand Inga as a core link to the GAD, to solar in Sahara, and a wind in coast. This includes mini grids for rural areas, for example. We also need to have timeline and cost. If we could invest 100 billion to 150 billion over the 10 to 15 years, starting with, for example, 2026, if the AU could, or those African members could commit to this, we'll be having a lot in terms of what is necessary to move the continent where we are supposed to go. There's a lot also that need to be done here, you see. If you go beyond that, if you could have actually connecting 300 million people, because now we are 600, if you could tap it to 300 more, then what you need to leverage on is just invest on some of the banking system we have, some of the funds we get across. And actually that could help us accelerate what you want. We need to work on the mini grids of off-grid solutions. We need to work on mobile payment systems for energy access and low ones. We need to work on the smart grid. We need to work on the storage solutions. or better technologies, making renewable integration viable at scale. All this is what you need to work on. So Africa has the opportunity to bypass fossil fuel dependency and build a clean energy system from the ground up. And this approach could save the continent over 350 billion in infrastructure costs while creating a more resilient and sustainable energy for the continent. So basically, as I bring this to an end, probably, is just to call for either the AU, whether they want to commit their summit in any year, because I know they have annual summits for energy. They need to start thinking on how the continent start investing uniformly. The countries come uniformly and put a fund that can enable to fund projects across the continent that are continental wide in terms of helping the continent. We need to accelerate those power pool integration. As now you see Namibia depend on South Africa, Mozambique. That way, if we can start integrating them, we need to harmonize these energy policies and regulations. If we can start early as possible and start launching the mission to ensure that we connect the 300 million Africans at least to reach a billion or a 900 million mark in the next by 2030, then we can scale that up and see where we can go. So I believe as it sits now, the only body that is having the all African countries at a bay that can actually call for this currently is the AU, as much as a toothless bulldog. But it has the potential to push their members, if it has to be used progressively, to ensure that they can commit to liberate and to contribute money to support the continent. I think it's a high time the leadership of Africa should know that a coordinated, unified approach is very necessary for us to develop Africa. Because we cannot develop Africa if we are not going to invest on the energy sector. And that's where I end my presentation now. So thank you very much for your time. And I'll request if Sister Ida is still around. Sister Ida, you can please, if you are able to help me take some of the few and as I take a beat pause on sip some water.
Okay. I see that Sister Amma has got her hand up. And then Brother Decking. Sister Amma, would you like to proceed?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to say I've posted something in the chat which I just found, which talks about, but I can't get back to.
South Africa, the Environment Minister. Sister Amma? Sister Amma, are you there? Oh, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I can't cope with all this technology. Sorry. No, so I haven't had a chance to read it. I've literally just found it because I thought I would do a just quick search. So I've shared it there because it's talking about developing some form of nuclear power within South Africa. It's been given the go-ahead. So that might be of specific interest to those who are living in South Africa in the group, but to all of us generally. So I just wanted to highlight that to people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Brother Decking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, I want to bring on board some of these energies we're talking about, like the green energy. Africa has not actually scratched this industrial era yet, and we need higher energy, strong one that will be able to power some of these industries to be able to make this industrial revolution or what we are trying to do to happen. Some of this green energy, like the solar energy and what have you, do not have that capacity to be able to give us that level of energy we need. So now, if Africa, we say, okay, we are talking about green energy, what the pass through those industrial era already, they've actually, energy from this, or whatever they call it, this energy they are trying to get us to. The gone through that stage already. Now, if I have not gone through that stage and you are telling me that I also want to go through that stage and you are telling me that I should now go back to green energy, which is good, but you have developed through the other one and you are asking me to go through green energy, which will not be able to give me that sufficient energy I want to manufacture, then aren't you being unfair to me in that regard as an African? That's a question I'm asking. Yeah, it is a question actually.
Oh, okay, thank you, thank you. What you're saying about green energy, especially solar energy, I know that when I went home, I was thinking, oh, why don't we go solar? Why don't we go solar? My brother was saying it's to do with battery life, that the battery life doesn't last very long, and that they need to get better batteries and stuff for solar. So I'll just throw that into the mix. Sister Chisomo, Sister Grace, would you like to go next? Thank you.
Oops. Yeah. My experience in my country, I really, really wouldn't be bothered with ESCOM water board. I would go for the borehole. I would use solar. Like I said, the solar that I discovered did not need any batteries. Like I said, that little package with bulbs. But then after what I saw there, then I came here, I searched on Amazon, on Temu, on wherever. There's loads and loads of solar products, loads. In fact, when I went, knowing that the power outage is I went with some solar lights, about 6 of them. So we just put one in each room or walk around with one in each room, and the guards outside had some, and they were very, very tiny, a little tiny handheld device that just lights up. Of course, you have to put them out in the well. That's what we did. Put them out in the sun during the day, and in the evening we had sufficient light. Apart from charging the phones, like I said, when I came here, there's lots and lots of phone charging and this charging and that charging that you can really use. And for cooking, I'll get gas and that's it. I don't have to bother with all these people fighting corrupt people. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Ifo, I see your hand is up. Thank you. Brother Ifo, can I invite you to speak? Can you hear me? Oh, praise, hello. Brother Ifo? Anyone else who might like to say anything?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I forgot that this is a laptop that the built-in speaker doesn't work, so I have to plug headphones in. Yeah, I had some other things to say, but I will actually address the question that was asked about green and if that is a unnecessary burden. Um, I think some people in the power industry, not just some people, but in general, in power, the folks who are looking at power generation in the so-called developed world, I say so-called because they're not developed. They're like babies. But those who are actually engineers looking at power issues have realized that they made a mistake, you know. And the mistake they've made was the way in which they actually built their power infrastructure. It was done in a way that was completely unsustainable. a huge chunk of it was draining resources from Africa and also created environmental damage. And so now they're trying to pivot to more sustainable ways because, for example, in Texas, they've also been having brownouts and having power outages, and they've also had they privatized the power grid in Texas, similar to how the IMF convinced Africans to governments to I wouldn't say convinced. I would say they more or less forced them to privatize a lot of things, and what that has caused devastation in Texas. Some people have power rates that have gone from something that they thought was high before to some things that are even higher than the average person's monthly income. So the whole privatization system and the whole fossil fuel-based system makes absolutely no sense. It only makes sense if you're willing to sacrifice Africans' lives for it. They, there are more sustainable alternatives that do not pollute as much, or in some cases are net positive to the environment. There are things that can be looked into, but I think so. I do not look at the quest for green as a detriment to our society or even to African communities. Like I went to my village, and yes, because it's my father's house which I'm taking over. But anyway, we do have satellite dish, but they were hit. It was hit by lightning, created a problem. Now, if we had, as was suggested earlier, someone had said, if we had solar lights, if we had all this other infrastructure, we would still be able to have basic lights. Another thing that there's also, if you have one of the things I'm going to be taking with me and also giving to some of my relatives when I go back home is the portable solar battery rechargers for your phones and other USB devices. Those things you only buy if you have a good one, you only buy it once and that lasts for years. No more having to go pay for power to recharge your phones and recharge a whole bunch of other things. So I think that there are ways in which we can do things that will reduce the drain on the actual power that you need for everything else. Power is wasted in this part of the world where I live. I'm in Canada now, because they just built things based on cheap power, but that stopped being the case. And if we can shift towards more sustainable things, things will make sense. The other thing is there are a lot of indigenous African technology that doesn't require power. That makes sense. And there are ways in which to do things. Um, I remember, I'll close with this. I think there was a program where they created a playground in a school, and so the children run around and push this thing around and they have fun. They also have swings and other things that children like to play with. And those things are connected to devices so that when the children move them, they actually generate electricity. And that electricity is stored in devices that are used to power other things in the community, used to bring up water. So there's ways to do things that are different than the mistakes. Like we can learn from the good things that have been done outside of Africa. We can also learn from their mistakes and try not to repeat that. And I've completely forgotten about my original point for putting up my hand in, so I will yield the mic for now. Thank you.
Okay, Brother Ifa, that sounds really interesting. Indigenous ways, the swings and the other things. Maybe if you could find out more about it, you could maybe give us a talk on it because it sounds, I can't remember the name of what you're talking, like a dynamo or something that will spark electricity.
Yes, it's
Um,
basically like a dynamo, but they connect. It's a massive one, but it's connected to playground equipment for children. So the children just
wow.
play,
Well,
and it generates
if you can
community.
find out any more about that, maybe you could tell us because that does sound really interesting. So thank you for bringing that up. Brother Pigeon, Sister Grace, Brother Decking, I see your hands up. I just want to make a comment, and then I'll come to you, Brother Pigeon. We have roughly 12 minutes left, but I think the fact that along our talk, it reminded me that the coastline of especially Accra, when the at night when the sea is coming in, we get a lot of wind, and it's always sort of cools, not just at that time, but it keeps that part of the coast a lot cooler. And I think whoever was talking about wind power, we should all start maybe thinking about wind power a bit, because there must be a lot of wind that is coming in, and it can generate things. But let me be quiet and go to Brother Pigeon, please. We have 11 minutes, so maybe if you could
I'll be
3 minutes, and then Sister Grace, Brother Decking.
yeah
Thank you.
yeah I'll be very quick, Sister Ida. But what you're saying is where I want to start from, because when Brother the King asked about clean energy, the wind power you're talking about is a clean energy. And wind is all over the continent. And we cannot say that we have insufficient wind power. You see some of the study of how people even go extra mile to put the wind in the ocean. And the coastal line of Africa alone is kilometers. So Africa, if could they unite as a continent and decide to invest their money on a wind power across the continent alone, that's enough clean energy. Look, for example, the next thing you're talking about, solar. The sun in Africa is more than enough. If Africa will invest on solar alone, then they have already sun, a clean energy. So we don't even have any reason to be moved beyond the natural sources of energy, which I will say clean energy for us, wind and even sun, is natural. And those natural sources of energy just need a level of investment. Now look, for example, the water, even if they call of hydro, water is all over the continent. Everywhere there's a river, road, whatever fall. There's a fall in Zimbabwe, there's a fall in Congo. So even water energy, the hydro energy, is something we cannot complain is insufficient in the continent. So before even we move to nuclear, as some was saying, there's already the wind, there's the sun, and those are natural sources of energy we have. One thing I'll say is that what Brother Ifo was saying about privatization, the element of privatization is something that could not be accepted in basic things, because privatization is basically capitalizing on that source. For example, in Kenya, we have 3 organizations. We have a KenGen, which is generating power. We have a KenSACO, which is supplying power. We have a Kenya Power, which is charging power. So we have 3 parastatals with vehicles and officers just managing one thing called power that cannot still be sufficient enough and reliable enough. What does that tell you? Bureaucracy for eating money, exploiting and looting. So it's a matter of the whole continent can come together and start bidding their resources and putting their contribution to power big projects for continental development. And that can really help us a lot. But as I would say is that the lack of political goodwill, the prioritization of energy is an important source. And lastly, is about conflict of interest, of people just want to sell everything, even things that they can supply for the people. So I'll end there, Sister Ida. Back to you.
Thank you, Brother Pigeon. Sister Grace, you've got a few minutes, but before I forget this, I want to talk to Brother Ifo about those power sources, you know, that you can will save and that they really last. I think they sound brilliant because I keep hearing people using them, but it's the price. It's the price. If only we could get it a lot cheaper, we would all sort of be doing well. But anyhow, Sister Grace, you've got maybe 3 minutes, please. Thank you. Are you muted? I don't see you. Sister Grace, have you just
Sorry.
dropped off? Oh, thank
Sorry.
you.
Yeah, no, my country is the same as Mr. Pigeon. We have 3 companies and still no electricity. Before that, we had 1 company. We had sufficient, no blackouts, nothing. So, and also this fossil energy and whatever they're doing is about revenue, collecting taxes and whatever. So they're not going to promote green energy. Secondly, in my country, we've had a lot of young people, all these young people, teenagers, in fact, who have been generating electricity. I don't know how they do it, but they do, and they power the villages, proper electricity without connection to ESCOM or anything. They just put their own something that looks like a windmill or something, and then it powers a number of houses. But those boys are never promoted. They never, in fact, they are targeted, and then they said, oh, they're lying, and yet they can see the light. Remember, we had that that guy who had the film and who also generated electricity from a windmill. And then we've seen Namibia, Botswana, and Zambia come together to supply electricity. We are next door. They've left us out because obviously Malawi is so corrupt. Nobody wants anything to do with us. But they're coming together to supply and then maybe supply the region. So we've yet to see how that pans out. And also last year when I went to Malawi, I volunteered on a farm, on a permaculture farm. And they taught us how to make briquettes. So instead of using charcoal, cutting down wood and using charcoal from wood, you make your own briquettes and they work equally well. And you just make briquettes and you make your own stove. You can build your own stove and use the briquettes and it works fine.
And are the
So
briquettes from wood shavings or something?
yeah, you can create them from different things. We were using paper. All you do is
Okay.
just soak that paper until it mushes like porridge, and then you just mold it, squeeze the
Okay.
water out, dry it. It works
Yep.
perfectly well. I've also heard about energy being created from waste. So we just waste, literally waste.
What, burning the waste?
I don't know how they do it, but waste can create also energy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do they call it?
Okay.
Bio something. Yeah.
It's
Say that again.
What
bioenergy.
bio something? Yeah,
Bioenergy. Yeah.
bioenergy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've got all that in Africa. So I don't know
Yeah.
what the fuck is all about waiting for the government to do ABCD.
In fact, I think we keep hearing about you can get electricity from things to do with trees, but I've not heard enough about it. And let me go to Brother Decking because you've got 4 minutes, Brother Decking.
All
Please
right, I'll
come in.
give 1 minute. 1 minute. So you see, let's not forget there's one thing. The green energy serves the domestic purposes well, but when it comes to the industry, it doesn't help us. We are not seeing like it's not strong enough to be able to help the industries. That is the challenge we are having. You see, so how then do we go about if we are saying that let's forgo the nuclear energy, the fossil, and all this, that is harmful to our environment? What is the alternative means for the industries we are trying to look at for Africa?
Can I just come in quickly? If we, the individuals, used green energy, then there will be enough for the industry. So we don't have to share the mainstream energy, all of us. So we use the green one and they use the fossil one to power the industries. That's what I would say.
Okay. So that is it.
Brother Ifa? Okay, thank you. Brother Ifa, you had your hand up. We're about to end, but if you want to say something.
I would be
quickly.
30 seconds. I'm a
Good.
computer scientist, and one of the big things that draws power is data centers, which have been used for AI and other things. But there are data centers that are what they call zero energy data centers. And what they do is they use alternative, quote unquote, green energy to power the infrastructure. And some of these data centers are using more power than many countries. So when you think about that, you would realize that it is actually possible to do things. And then there are also more efficient industrial equipment available today, which don't draw as much power because a lot of the power in the old equipment was wasted because power was cheap. I will. Oh, and I mentioned that
Okay.
there are also solar ovens available, and we also have in northern Nigeria we have indigenous baking technique, which means you just put your flour and everything else. You dig a hole in the sand and you put it in there and you cover it, and you go out your day, and when you come back, your bread is baked. So you don't need any energy.
Brother Ifo, the more you say, the more you get yourself in trouble because you need to come and give us a presentation on these indigenous ways.
I'm down for that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Brother Pigeon, you have 1 minute till we close, so it's up to you. And you hear Brother Ifo saying that he's down to giving us a presentation on indigenous ways of creating energy. Thank you, Brother Pigeon. It's up to you.
Yeah, thank
Now
you very
to you.
much, sister. Thank you very much, Sister Ida, for helping us in this, and also for all members who have also come in to share the thoughts with us. Indeed, Sister Ida, I'll check within our schedule again, and we can have a part two, but this will be dedicated probably from Brother Ifo to do for us a presentation on either indigenous solar or power sources. They might not be for those mega projects, but at least for how we can have the knowledge to lighten the continent in terms of even getting the basic 100% for people's access to power.
Wonderful.
What I'm
Thank
sharing,
you.
what I'm sharing in the screen here is the solar potential, and this is in China. Can you look those solars? Can you tell me that solar energy cannot power industry? Look at those. All that is a solar field.
Yeah, but look
So
how much
with
space.
yeah, but for example, in Kenya here, there's one county which is 62 kilometers square. Do you know 62,000 kilometers square is almost a 200 kilometer square? This place is not even a 200 kilometer square. So we have enough space in the continent to even invest on dedicating a solar plant or anything of that. So we have a lot of these solar projects that can then power the continent. China does it in the mountains and in the hills. They put them close to the hills and the mountains. It's just a matter that we just need to have the right investment and the right will for us to power the continent. We don't have an excuse to run away from natural resources because we have natural resources in abundance in the continent. Just that we need to target on the right direction. But because of our time, permit me to thank you all once again for sharing your thoughts. Two things have come to us now. One is that we consider to have a talk on next Saturday about the South African case and the xenophobic attack, but we'll be looking at it in the angle of unification of Africa. So how do you overcome xenophobic towards unification of Africa? How do you unify beyond those attacks? So we'll be looking at all the issues surrounding it. And as I've said, we are requesting people who are interested to do a presentation of this to come forth. We are also taking away that we have to schedule another day from Brother Ifo to move probably at two of this conversation. So that's what I had. On Thursday, we will be going on with our consciousness study. We are looking at very interesting parts about the ideology, role of ideology in the history and society. So we invite you to join us on that Thursday. Tuesday, we are going on with the Kiswahili class. We are almost done with the CSG Swahili class, the cohort we have. And there are also Sundays we do sometimes review of the Dictator's book, Defeating Dictator by Haiti, by Dr. George Haiti. Currently, we are looking at the house, the fall of dictators. So if you have time, still come and join us. It's always 6 p.m. All our classes are 6 p.m. London time, meaning Ghana time. And the recordings will be available by next week, latest Wednesday. All last week recordings, I think, are already available on our YouTube channel. You can always go back to them and do your review. Having said that, permit me to say thank you, and I have nothing else to say. Back to you, Sister Ida, for the closure. Sister Ida?
Sorry?
Just close it for us.
Oh, well, we're already late. So I say thank you all, and we see you next Thursday. Thank you. Thanks. It's been very interesting. Good night
Thank you
to you
too.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
everyone.
good night. Bye-bye.